We're at the Scottish Parliament at Holyrood here in Edinburgh in one of the committee rooms. All the shows being broadcast live from the Parliament today. I've been chatting with members from all the political parties and finding out a little bit about the workings of the Parliament and indeed some of the work that the individuals themselves do. Now we've got Ken Gibson with us now. Ken is an MSP with the Scottish National Party. Ken, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
So tell us, Ken, about yourself then. How did you come up to be involved in politics?
Well, I actually joined the Scottish National Party in my first day at university back in 1979. I had went to Switzerland, and a country half the size of Scotland but with a larger population, very prosperous, very low unemployment, a high standard of living, and I thought to myself, if a country like that can manage to have a higher standard of living than Scotland, why can't we? And I thought if we take control of our own affairs, then we would be able to do better than allowing our next door neighbour to effectively do it for us. So I've been a member of the SNP for well over 32 years now. It certainly feels like it. And I was first elected to the Parliament in 1999 as a Glasgow list MSP, and in Cunningham North in 2007 as a constituency member, and I continued to represent that area of North Ayrshire.
Right, so you moved about a little bit.
Aye, well, I was a councillor in Glasgow first before I was an MSP, but I quite fancied being a constituency representative, and an opening came up in North Ayrshire where we thought there was a strong chance we could win, and indeed we managed to win the seat by a wafer-thin 48 votes, which gave the SNP 47 seats to Labour's 46 and put the SNP into minority administration. So it was an interesting time, definitely. It still is interesting. So
you've been through the whole, the Scotland Bill looking to create a parliament here in Edinburgh. That must have been quite an exciting time to be in politics when you're actually looking to create a parliament.
Yes, I mean, I have to be honest, the 1980s were a very dark time for the SNP. The party was almost marginalised, and I think that many of us who were out in cold, wet, dreary nights wondered if we were ever going to make the breakthrough, but we stuck to our guns, and of course the Parliament was finally delivered in 1999, and I think that it's helped build a lot of confidence and self-belief in Scotland, and I only wish the media covered more of what we're doing. I think that's why it's great that that Insight Radio is actually covering the Parliament today.
I was chatting with our guest Richard earlier on, and I came out here a couple of years ago to do a little piece on the Parliament itself, sort of doing a bit of a tour of the building, because it's quite an iconic building here down at Holyrood in Edinburgh. What's it like working somewhere like this?
Oh, I really enjoy working in it, but I mean, it's not so much the building as the people. I think there is a real collegiate atmosphere within the Parliament, and within the chamber itself, often, there's a wee bit of blood and thunder, and I like to get involved in that myself. I like to get quite passionate in debates. But I mean, outside the chamber, MSPs do actually get on very well together, and there's a lot of cross-party groups, as you know, including one in visual impairment, and there is a lot of people who actually work quite closely together. And everyone, regardless of your politics, is trying to work to make Scotland a better place.
Do you think that's what makes the sort of political landscape here a bit different in the way politics is done here in the Parliament? Because not just individual parties, but there's also this common goal to look after the country that these powers have been devolved to.
Well, I think that's absolutely right, and I think one of the things which people often don't hear about is a committee system, and we've got a committee system in which the committees actually hold the Scottish Government to account. Now, we've got an SNP majority, so it's even more incumbent upon people like myself, I'm the chair of the Finance Committee, to ensure that when we scrutinise the Scottish Government's work, we do so as absolutely fairly as possible, and that with the reports we produced are robust. And in fact, we produced the Finance Committee's report on the Scottish budget just today. It's actually going out. It's embargoed today. I'm unfortunately not allowed to speak about it, but tomorrow it will be in the public domain, and people who look at that, and it will be available online, of course, will be able to see that we've really had a very robust scrutiny of what the Scottish Government is actually doing in terms of finance.
It's interesting you said earlier on, we see things like, say, First Minister's questions, and you hear political debate and all sorts of programmes, but, at the same time, there is, as you say, a bit of camaraderie amongst everyone here.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I mean, it's a bit like an iceberg. You only really see what's at the top. And it's funny because some people say, oh, I turn on to the Parliament, there's only 20 people in the chamber. Well, that's because most of us actually have other things to do. I mean, on an ordinary day, you could meet, a dozen different organisations. For example, the Prince's Trust or the NSPCC, or you could meet a group of children from your constituency. There's a lot of things to be done other than just being in the chamber listening to debates all the time. I think people sometimes don't realise that. And of course, after we have the votes, that's when we have the cross-party groups. That's when we and at lunchtime, and that's when we have organisations that want to come in and meet MSPs. I mean, last night we had a food and drink event for organic producers in Galloway. We also had the cross-party group on sexual health. We had the cross-party group on, oh my God, I can't even remember. There were so many actually. There usually have about 6, 7, 8, and people try to jump between them because I think a lot of MSPs want to try and, there was the RSPB reception as well. There's a lot of things actually happening here in the Parliament, and the MSPs of all political persuasions are very keen to engage with Scottish civil society.
It sounds as if it's a very hectic working life as an MSP, but I imagine that goes beyond the walls of the Parliament as well.
Well, I have to be honest. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, 80% of my workload is in the constituency. It's not actually here. I'm here on a Wednesday and a Thursday, but in the constituency is really where the action is, and that's because you've got a plethora of organisations that you work with, but also numerous constituents will come to their MSP with all sorts of issues and concerns, and particularly in the day today when Scotland's been hit very badly by storms, there's a lot of people who are concerned, and they'll contact you if they've had power cuts and they don't feel that the companies are getting back to them quick enough, or there's flooding. But all year round we have hundreds of people, thousands indeed sometimes, people coming to see you about everything from issues relating to council tax, to potholes in the street, to planning applications, to trying to obtain grants for the voluntary group they're a member of, or just whatever it happens to be, community councils who've got particular issues in their own area. So it is a very busy job, and it is a vocational job. I mean, if you're not going to work, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, I don't think you can do the job properly.
How do you keep track of all the work? It sounds immense, just not just within the Parliament, but outside with your constituency work. Well,
you really have to keep a lot of balls near it at the time, and I mean we have each MSP has a couple of staff, which is important because I mean even when I'm in Edinburgh, there are people who walk in the door of my constituency office, which is in Dalry, North Ayrshire, and they have to be able to get a response as soon as possible. And of course, people are firing in emails. I think probably Monday to Friday, average between 200 and 250 emails a day. So it's important that you've got a couple of staff actually who are able to work. So for example, if I've got a case in, I always deal with cases personally. I'll dictate the letters, but my staff will type those letters up so that I can rattle off more in a day than if I was having to plod through it all myself, So we do have a kind of support system, and that's vital. And each political party's got their own research team to look at political issues, because MSPs rarely have the time to do that work themselves. Although they may have specialist interest, of course, and I think every MSP, I think, does have interest in some area or other.
Is it a job you enjoy getting out of the bed in the morning for?
Oh, of course it is. I mean, I certainly do, actually. I mean, I really enjoy because it is so varied and it is so interesting. I mean, sometimes, when it's a cold, wet night, and you've got a meeting, at 7:30, 15 miles away, you've got to drag yourself down there. I mean, up until Friday of last week, I was out 19 consecutive nights, including Sundays, and we had a party function in Dalry, my own branch area, and I just said to the SNP, look, I'm not going to have another night out. I know it's a fundraiser, but I need to have a night in front of the telly, slumped on a sofa doing nothing, just to recharge my batteries, Because I had 3 surgeries on the Friday, 4 on the Saturday, and I had to process all those inquiries as well, so which took out a chunk of Sunday. So it's great just to have a night, when you don't have to do any thinking. So
what about yourself personally? Where do you see yourself going within the party and within the Scottish Parliament?
Well, in terms of the party, it's who can tell, to be honest. I mean, I'm really happy chairing finance at the moment. I've been doing that job for 6 months. It's a really interesting job, and I'm happy with that. And I really enjoy being an elected constituency member, so I'm not really looking to change. If the great helmsman himself decides, to move me to another committee, or indeed give me a ministerial post, obviously I'll look at that. But at the moment, I'm happy with what I'm doing at the moment.
Well, it's certainly been interesting chatting with you, Ken. Just very briefly, you know, and if we had more time, we could obviously go into a lot more depth.
Indeed.
It's interesting to find out about all the work that you guys do, you know, as you say, not just there in the chamber at First Minister's Questions.
No, it'd be boring if it was just about speechifying, I can assure you.
Well, Ken Gibson, thank you very much for speaking with us on Insight Radio.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.